Welcome to Still Moments, Bible Story Meditation, a quiet space where we step inside God's stories, listen with our hearts, and become aware of His presence in every moment. This is the Elisha series, Volume 1, The Call in the Field, Episode 2, The Interrupted Day. In the last still moment, the mantle was placed on Elisha's shoulders, and an ordinary day quietly began to change. But calling does not end the moment it is received. There is a moment after the interruption, a quieter moment, when the heart begins to understand that saying yes to God may ask for something to be left behind. The field is still there. The plow is still there. Home is still close enough to return to. And Elisha now stands between the life he has always known and the road beginning to open before him. Today, we remain in that moment. Take a slow breath and let it go gently. Let your body become still. Let your thoughts settle. Now, enter this still moment, the interrupted day. And Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. 1 Kings 19:19. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. Isaiah 55:8-9. Stay where you are for a moment, and do not move too quickly past what has just happened. Some moments divide a life quietly. The field remains the same. The work remains the same. And yet, something has been placed upon Elisha's shoulders that cannot simply be ignored. A day that began like every other day no longer carries the same meaning it held this morning. Return now to the field. Let your eyes settle there again slowly, as though you are stepping back into a place you have already seen, only to realize something within it has changed. The afternoon light still stretches across the land with the same quiet steadiness as before. The smell of freshly turned earth still lingers in the air. The oxen remain where they were, strong and unmoving, and the long lines cut into the ground still trail behind the plow exactly as they did earlier in the day. Nothing in the field appears disturbed, and yet nothing feels entirely the same. Remain there for a little longer. There are moments in life when the surroundings stay familiar while the heart quietly realizes it cannot return to seeing things the way it did before. Some answers do not arrive through rushing ahead, but through remaining present long enough to notice what has already changed within us. Return your attention gently to Elisha. The mantle still rests upon his shoulders, light enough to be carried, yet far too significant to be dismissed. The road ahead remains unseen, but this much is already clear. Something has changed, and the question before him is no longer what has happened, but what he will do next. The field has gone still around him. The rhythm that carried the day no longer holds the same way. His hands remain on the plow, but they do not move as before. The oxen stand waiting. The long furrows stretch behind him across the field. Everything remains where it was, unchanged, yet he cannot return to it in the same way. Remain there, long enough to feel that interruption, not noise, not confusion, but something quieter and heavier. A moment that divides life into before and after, while everything outwardly appears the same. The weight of the moment settles deeper than movement. His thoughts no longer remain inside the ordinary rhythm of the day. The mantle rests across him, unfamiliar in weight, but unmistakable in meaning. He knows what this is. This is not a visitor passing by. This is not an ordinary moment that will disappear by morning. This is calling. Now, let your eyes move to Elijah. He does not stop to explain. He does not stand and offer a long speech. He keeps walking. Elijah moves forward as though the invitation itself is enough, because some callings do not begin with explanation. They begin with recognition. Return your attention to Elisha. He lets go of the plow. Do not move too quickly past that. Look at his hands, hands that have known work, repetition, responsibility, and expectation. Hands that understood this life and knew what tomorrow would normally look like, and now they loosen their hold. He steps away, not because every question has been answered, but because he already knows he cannot remain where he was. Watch him begin to move after Elijah, and then stop. For a moment, he stands between the field behind him and the road ahead. Then he turns and runs toward home. Let your eyes follow him, not away from the call, but towards something that must be finished before he leaves. There are goodbyes to make. There is a life behind him that cannot simply be abandoned like forgotten tools in a field. He asks for one final moment to kiss his father and mother goodbye. Calling is holy, but it is still human. There are endings inside beginnings. There is grief inside obedience. There is love inside leaving. Elijah answers simply, "Go back again, for what have I done to thee?" Elijah's words hang in the air between them. He does not reach for Elisha's arm. He does not urge him forward or pull him back. The decision remains where it must be, in Elisha's hands. Behind him lies the field, the furrows cut into the earth, the oxen waiting where he left them. Ahead, the road stretches after Elijah. The space between those two worlds feels almost visible. The familiar life has not disappeared. it still stands within sight. He does not move immediately. The mantle rests across his shoulders. The sounds of the field remain around him, yet something inward has already shifted. Before his feet take a step, the choice has begun to settle within him. Soon he will return once more. He will look again at the life that has carried him this far and decide what cannot follow him where God is leading. But for now, remain beside him in this pause. The mantle rests upon his shoulders, and the road still waits ahead. Somewhere, just beyond this moment, stands a step that will ask for everything. Most people want to know exactly what will happen before they say yes. We prefer clear answers and visible direction. It feels safer to understand where a road is leading before we leave behind what has become familiar to us. There is comfort in certainty because uncertainty forces a person to walk without controlling the outcome. Yet God often begins moving within a life before everything fully makes sense. Elisha was not given a long explanation about his future. Elijah did not stop to describe where the road ahead would lead or what the next years would require of him. No detailed conversation took place in the field. A mantle rested upon Elisha's shoulders, and suddenly the ordinary day he had awakened to no longer carried the same meaning it held that morning. The interruption itself became the invitation. There are moments in life when something shifts quietly within a person before they can fully explain why. The surroundings may remain familiar, yet remaining the same no longer feels possible. A person begins recognizing that God may be calling them forward, even while many questions still remain unanswered. That tension can feel unsettling because obedience often begins before clarity arrives. Trust is formed in the space where a person continues walking without possessing the full picture ahead of them. The interruption is not always a distraction from God's will. Sometimes it is the very place where His invitation first becomes visible. Calling is not always confirmed through dramatic signs or overwhelming emotions. Often, it becomes visible through the quiet willingness to loosen our grip on what once defined our normal life in order to follow where God is leading next. And sometimes, the hardest part is not hearing the call. Sometimes the hardest part is letting go of the plow. Joseph once began a day expecting to return home to his father by evening. Yet before that same day ended, he found himself lowered into a pit by the very brothers he trusted. What first appeared to be destruction eventually became part of a direction only God could fully see at the time. Life can change that suddenly. A conversation, a moment, a realization, or an unexpected interruption can suddenly alter the meaning of everything that felt certain only hours before. The surroundings may remain familiar, yet something inside a person recognizes that the road ahead can no longer continue exactly as it once did. Elisha stood inside that kind of moment. The field was still there. The family he loved was still there. The life he understood had not disappeared in an instant, and yet the mantle resting upon his shoulders had already changed the meaning of the day. Obedience often begins long before a person understands where the road will finally lead. So when life feels interrupted in ways you did not expect, remember that God has often begun new directions inside moments that first felt confusing, unwanted, or difficult to understand. What appears to be interruption may one day reveal itself as invitation. Lord, I praise you because even in moments I do not fully understand, you remain steady and unchanged. I know that some interruptions are difficult to understand while they are happening. What once felt familiar can suddenly begin to feel uncertain, and answers do not always arrive as quickly as the questions do. Yet, even here, in the middle of what I do not fully understand, help me remember that you are still present. Teach me not to cling so tightly to what has always felt safe that I resist the places where you may be leading me next. When the road ahead feels unclear, give me grace to remain faithful without demanding immediate explanation for everything that is changing around me. Help me trust you in moments that feel unfinished. Help me remain steady when life no longer feels as simple as it did before. And when confusion or uncertainty rises within me, remind me that you are still able to guide people even while they are standing in the middle of interrupted days. Thank you for remaining near to me, even in seasons that do not yet fully make sense. In Jesus' name, amen. I do not have to understand everything right now. God is still with me in uncertain moments. I can remain faithful while the road ahead is still unclear. Even interrupted days can hold the direction of God. The field is still there. The long lines in the earth remain, and the place where the plow once moved does not disappear. Nothing about the land suddenly looks different, and yet Elisha cannot return to it as though nothing has happened. Some days divide life that way, not because everything changes outside, but because something changes within. A mantle falls. A decision is made. An ordinary day becomes the doorway to another life. Stay there for a moment and let that settle. Ask yourself, what in your own life has already been interrupted, and whether you have mistaken the call for an inconvenience. Sometimes the holiest moments do not arrive with thunder or with loud signs that everyone can see. Sometimes they come quietly, almost hidden inside an ordinary day, and ask only for your next step. The field remains behind him, but the weight of the mantle remains with him too. What has been placed on his shoulders will not be ignored, and the next step will ask him to decide what must be left behind. Thank you for entering this still moment. The interruption did not end in the field. It settled deeper within Elisha, where the real decision was beginning to form. The plow was still behind him. The road ahead was still unknown. And yet, something had already changed. Some moments ask more than emotion. They ask for surrender. They ask whether we will remain where we are or trust God enough to move forward. You may continue the journey in the next still moment, or if you are just beginning, you can return to the start and walk through each moment step by step. The next still moment, the weight of the mantle. We will remain with Elisha as the call begins to feel heavier, not because God is distant, but because obedience always carries weight. Until then, stay steady, stay faithful, and remember, God often works deeper than we first understand. This has been Still Moments, Bible Story Meditation, the Elisha Series, Volume 1, The Call in the Field. Sometimes God interrupts our lives not to take something from us, but to lead us somewhere deeper. Until the next still moment, remain faithful in the quiet places and trust that God is still guiding you even when the road ahead is not yet clear.